Namaste everyone. Welcome to Wave Optics class. We have been discussing about diffraction, but in between we had some break. So now we will continue the things what we have studied in diffraction, the bending of light around the narrow obstacles. We will quickly recap the things what we have studied earlier. Okay. These are the examples for diffraction. We have seen that a CD appearing colored because of the small ups and downs tracks on the surface. The thread is so fine for the spider web that it can bend the light. Its thickness it can be comparable with the wavelength of light. They can diffract light. So shadows will not be very clear at the edges. There will be some encroachment of light into the shadow. Light will enter into the shadow. That is also diffraction. You can see it in many ways. You can see this in the previous class also. I already explained. So for the formation of diffraction, you need a source, obstacle, and a screen, right? So these are the three essential parts. And once the ray undergoes diffraction bending, it forms multiple images. It doesn't form a single shadow. It forms multiple shadows side by side. So if you pass a beam of light through a very single slit, a very narrow slit, it forms a very bright slit light at the central, what is called central maximum. Side by side, it will form very light images also. And depending on the slit, you will get the pattern here. The pattern appears like this because the slit may be in the form of a line. Pattern may be in the form of circles if the slit is in the form of a hole, circular hole. So according to the obstacle, you will get the pattern here. Okay, that's why diffraction process is very helpful in studying the crystal structures. You know that if the incoming wavelength will bend according to the size of the obstacle. Suppose you want to bend X-rays, the wavelength of X-rays is X-rays are very less. So if you want to bend X-rays, the razor blade thickness and the spider web thickness is not possible, and you can't get effective diffraction using all those things. If you want to bend X-rays, the size of the obstacle must be very small, and it should be of the size of the atoms. So atoms and atoms in the crystal can bend X-ray. So if you pass X-ray to a crystal, depending on how the atoms are arranged, these atoms will diffract the X-ray, and they will form a pattern on a photographic plate. And so depending on the type of arrangement, whether it is face-centered cubic or body-centered cubic, or whether it is simple cubic, depending on the atomic arrangement, you get a pattern on the photographic plate for the X-ray. So X-ray bends, diffracts according to the structure. So by looking into the pattern on the screen, you can identify what type of crystal it is. So diffraction can be used in identifying crystals, and that is called X-ray crystallography. Of course, X-rays can be diffracted only by such a small atom, not by ordinary things that we find in our day-to-day life. So if you pass, just now I told, if you pass a parallel beam of light to a narrow hole, then the light shadow will not be a narrow hole like this. So you don't get light only in circular patch of light only at one place. You will get a circular patch of light, then some darkness, again circular patch of lights, again darkness, again circular patch of light, right? But the brightness of that circular patch of light will be lesser and lesser as you move outside. That means the next maximas produced by the diffracted beam here, these are all the diffracted beams, and that circular patch produced by the diffracted beam will not be very strong. So that we have known, and this is already explained. This is another one, animation already explained. So, and you know this one, even though it is already explained, we will recap it. I don't know whether you remember after a long time, after 5 days or so, remember this or not. Now we are interested with diffracted rays, right? Direct rays definitely form a bright fringe here, no doubt. Here it should be a bright fringe, and it is called central bright fringe, and it is the brightest fringe, and it is the widest fringe. And when the diffracted rays go like this, at what angle? Say theta. When they go like this, and you know A sin theta is equal to N lambda, A is the width of the slit, and theta makes how much is the path difference. Wave starting from the top of the slit, secondary wave starting from the bottom of the slit, they have a path reference now, because the bottom of the slit wave have to travel more and more, because it is a longer path for it. Upper half of the slit, upper top of the slit, that secondary wave traveling from here has to travel lesser. Okay, now here it is exactly 1 lambda. If this is 1 lambda, then this is a dark fringe. Why? Because here is a wave which is starting with half lambda path reference. So this wave and this wave will cancel each other. That means they interfere destructively. Similarly, for a wave starting from here, there is a wave starting from here. For a wave starting from just below this wave, there is a wave starting from here, which have a path reference of again lambda by 2, and they also cancel each other. So for all the waves starting from the top of the top half of the slit, there are waves in the bottom half of the slit, they cancel each other. So if a sin theta is equal to n lambda, then it's a destructive interference, you know it. So again, I don't explain it. Path reference, if a sin theta is equal to n lambda, but n starts from 1. Please remember, n starts from 1, not 0. 0 corresponds to the central fringe, that is finished here. With n equal to 1 means this one. So if it is 1 lambda, 2 lambda, 3 lambda, 4 lambda, you get a dark fringe. It is exactly opposite to the case that we get in interference, where this produces bright fringe. Path reference equal to n lambda gives bright fringe there. Here it is dark fringe. And if the path reference is n plus half lambda, okay, this is over, then it is a bright fringe, because for example, if it is 1.5 lambda, I'll take path reference, but I am considering the path reference between the wave starting from the top of the slit and bottom of the slit only. This one is traveling nearer path to reach here. This one has to travel more path. What about the wave starting from different points in between? They will have to travel more, but not as more as this one. Not this wave has to travel not as more as this one. This wave has to travel a little bit more. So the path reference between this and this is 1.5 lambda. If it is so, then this is half lambda. This is 1 lambda, correct? This will have a path reference of half lambda. So a wave starting from the top of the slit and a position here will cancel each other. Where again another wave starting from here and here cancel each other. All the waves starting from this part of the slit cancel this part. A wave starting from this part of the slit. So they cancel each other. This will survive, and that will produce a bright fringe here. So you will get a bright one here. So if condition is this is 3 lambda by 2, 1.5 lambda, path difference between the secondary wave starting from top of the slit and bottom of the slit. That path difference is 3.5 lambda, then 3 lambda by 2, then it is bright. Similarly, 5 lambda by 2. So general condition is a sin theta is equal to n plus half lambda. So bright fringe condition. Okay. And another important thing I would like to say is this one. Angular width of the central bright fringe. That is very important. Of course, I just shifted the problem of this part on the board itself. In next class, I will take it on the board and I will solve the problem of this part. But the explanation is very simple. Suppose this is bright fringe. Bright fringe, the brightness goes on decreasing and it becomes dark, perfect dark here. On the other side also, the brightness goes on decreasing and it becomes perfect dark. Now, what is the angular width of the bright fringe? Angular width means, suppose you stand here at the slit and look into the central bright fringe. If you can see the full bright fringe, what is the angle it will create? Suppose you go to a hill, look into the whole world. What is the angle through which you can see the world? That is 180 degree. It is quite obvious because you can receive the rays as parallel as possible, as parallel to your face as possible. Because our eyes are situated in such a way that you can receive light from leftmost end to the rightmost end. It is 180 degree angular width. Similarly here, this central bright fringe is situated in how much angular width? If you want to know that, we will draw the lines here and we will take a half angular width first of all. What is half angular width? This is the central bright fringe from here to here. Of course, brightness here and all will not be as much as at the center. But up to the first dark fringe, you have the central bright fringe. Okay, then this is the central part and this is the dark fringe part. So take theta here. So again, I would like to remember you that even though you are finding the angular width of the central bright fringe like this, you are going to apply the condition of dark fringe. Okay. So how does it actually look like? It is like this. So this is the width of the central fringe. A sin theta equal to n lambda formula you are going to apply, because we are going up to the, when you are showing your place in your house, you have to go to the compound of the other house, right? So you have to reach up to the compound of the other's house, your neighbor's house. Till there you have your place. So you have to go up to the dark fringe. Okay. So A sin theta equal to first dark fringe lambda, that condition you have to apply. And it looks like this actually, correct? If I can place the real diffracted image, photography, photo, then you can see this here. So this is the brightest part of that whole image of the whole, and next you get dark, again next bright, dark, next bright, you can see a very light bright image here. Okay, so these lines are drawn, or the rays drawn to see where the dark point is. Let this theta be here, and when you look from here, how much angle does it create? That is what I want. Okay, now if this is theta, you know A sin theta is equal to 1 lambda. If A sin theta is equal to 1 lambda, of course, theta is very small usually, because all these things are very, very smaller in size, and you can see the diffraction in a smaller angle. If you go to very large angles, the diffracted beams are so weak that you don't get the image at all. Sir, where is the bright spot produced by the next diffracted beam light? It is so weak that you can't see it at all. So we will take theta very, very small. A theta, then when theta is very small, A sin theta is sin theta is almost equal to theta, A theta equal to 1 lambda. Okay, that's right. Now, if A theta is equal to 1 lambda, what is theta is equal to lambda by A? So that is the angular width. This is very important formula. Don't by heart it, just get it from A sin theta equal to 1 lambda. Every time when you get it, you will get it, this one formula printed in your brain. So theta is equal to lambda by A. Suppose you are asked to find out what is the linear width of the central bright fringe. Of course, we haven't found out the full angular width. Full angular width is double of this, double lambda by A. That's all. So, sir, what is the linear width? If you measure it from here to here, what is the linear width? Take it as x. If it is x here, of course, you have to shift this diagram here. X here. You put that arc length is equal to, this is the arc length, this is the radius, right? Arc length L is equal to R d theta, right? So if you put that, x equal to d, capital D, that's what we write, capital D for distance between the screen and the slit. So x equal to d theta, I think I've written it, yes, x equal to d theta. So you substitute for theta, x equal to lambda d by A. So that is the linear width. And if you want the full linear width, 2x you can do, 2 lambda d by A. So this part is very important. And okay, so this is how we explain graphically. The brightness of the central bright fringe will be highest here. Brightness goes on decreasing, and intensity will be 0. And this is the first dark fringe, and this is the place where we get path difference equal to 1.5 lambda. This is 0 lambda. This is 1.5 lambda. Okay, and next bright fringe will be produced here, right? Sorry, this is 1 lambda. 1 lambda, sorry, for n lambda dark you get, this is 1.5 lambda bright fringe, next one. This is called minima, this is called central maxima, this is the highest bright position. Okay, so that is due to the, diffraction is because of the interference of the secondary waves starting from the different points of the obstacle. That's why we have shown here different waves from the secondary waves. Okay, next. So now I want to make you some points clear about this visual acuity. That means, suppose you are looking into some hill or say moon, you don't see craters on the moon clearly. Suppose you are on the moon itself, you can see them clearly. When you look into a hill, you see some greenery there, right? Suppose you go very close to the hill, you will start observing the trees, their branches and all separate. But as you go closer and closer, you can see some leaves, and as you go very close, you can see the cells in the leaves and all. And if you put this in the microscope and put it under the microscope and see, and you can see very well separated images of cells and all. So why this is possible? Because when you are far away, suppose there are two objects very far away from your eyes, they create very small angle in your eyes. Suppose you take two rays of light coming from those objects, they create a very small angle in your eyes. But our eyes require, there is a require a minimum angle to be created so that two objects can be seen very clearly. Suppose you look into a mesh or the window bars of your house, then those window bars can be clearly seen when you are in your room. Suppose you go out of your house and go far away and look into your house, you can't see the window bars at all. You see some just patch of colors and you don't see the individual bar separately, because the angle created by the rays coming from the two separate bars will not be enough to show you the image clearly. That is the problem. So two stars will appear to be merged because the distance between the two stars are so close that they don't create much angle in your eyes. What is the minimum angle that has to be created in your eyes so that two objects are seen well separated? That is 1 minute. 1 minute they should create here, this angle. If it is less than 1 minute, then 1 minute means 1/60th of a degree. If 60 degree if you have, divided 60 degree into um, 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 1 degree divided by 60 parts, very sorry, when 1 degree is divided into 60 parts, it is called 1 minute, right? Such a small angle it has to create, at least that much angle it has to create, right? 1 minute is the minimum angle that is needed by the two separate objects created at the eye, so that you can see them just separated. 1 minute means 1 degree divided into 60 parts, and one part is called 1 minute. Now, if that is 1 minute, you can see that. Suppose this is not 1 minute, you will never see these two objects like this. You will see they appear them as merged. Now come closer and closer. Sir, when we see the same objects, when we go closer to the same objects and when we observe it, we see them clearly. What is the reason? Because this angle goes on increasing. Sir, how does the angle go on increasing? Why don't we see leaves and branches of trees when we are far away from the hill? Why do we see it only when go very close to the hill? Very simple. Suppose these are the leaves and branches, they create more and more angle as you move closer. When you come closer, the angle they create will be more. As you move forward, the angle will be more and more, and still it will be more as you go closer to them. This is the only logic behind this. So when the angle subtended goes to 1 minute, you can see them just separated. When the angle subtended by the two closely lying objects at your eyes is more than 1 minute, they are well separated. You can see them separately, clearly, right? So that is very much needed for your eye, because eye is also having some limitations. Okay, so as you go closer and closer, you get more and more angle between the two angle subtended by the two objects at the eye. So this is what you call angle subtended at the eye. So if you are observing two stars, how much angle they will subtend, and if this is the distance between this is the width of the central maximum, how much angle it will subtend at the eye. Okay, now so okay, see, the same thing happens when we look into some headlights of vehicles. See, this is a photograph of an aeroplane taking off in its runway. It is coming from somewhere here, and it is taking off from the runway. Some camera is hidden under the ground somewhere, and it is taken, and it is made very fast now. Now, when that light is very far away, you see, but this is very fast. I can't slow it down. When the light is somewhere here, coming like this and turning, you see that it appears to be a dot, but it appears to be separate only when it comes closer. Can you observe it? So that is one of the example to show that there is a minimum distance between the two objects, or there should be a minimum angle subtended at the eye, so that you can see the two objects clearly. So that is a minimum requirement, one of the basic requirement for clear observation, right? So it appears to be a single spot somewhere here as it starts, and then as it reaches, it becomes wider and wider, and you can see some 2 or 3 separate headlights in the aeroplane. Okay, and this is simply to show that this is just an animation. As you move closer and closer, so for a distant point in the space, Earth is a very beautiful blue sphere. But as you go closer, you will find that it is made up of so many buildings and all, and very less greenery you can see. It is separate and separate. You can see individual separate buildings and all. Similarly, you will have one more thing. See, this is how telescope is focused onto the moon, and you can see the craters and ups and downs, hills on the moon. Because telescope has the ability of showing the images. See, actually what the telescope is doing, that is why I wanted to show this image. Sir, when we look into the moon from the earth with bare eyes, we don't see the craters of the moon. We see moon as a simple circular or spherical white globe. But when we look through the telescope, the distance is not changed from moon to our eyes, isn't it? We are not going closer to the moon. But still, through the telescope, we will be able to see the craters on the moon. How is it possible? Very simple logic. When we see the image of the moon, when the image of the moon is created, when moon is seen through bare eyes, or without any telescope or without any goggles, anything, nothing, binocular, nothing. When you look into the moon, what type of image is created on the retina? Compare it with the image created when you look into the moon through the telescope. When seen through the telescope forms a better image, and that image is seen by our eyes. So telescope helps us to see the better image. So telescopes creates an image of the moon which is closer to us than the actual moon. That is the job of the telescope. So through the telescope, we can see the image of the moon nearer than what do we see with bare eyes. So what happens when we see it nearer using the telescope? All the craters and everything will create more angle in your eyes, more than what is required. So you can see them clearly separated. So that is the working of a telescope. Actually, telescope doesn't magnify the image of the moon. That means it doesn't form the image which is larger than the size of the moon. Image of the moon will be always smaller than the moon itself. Whether you look through the telescope or whether without telescope you look into the moon, images are always smaller. But if you compare the images, what the image is formed when seen through the telescope is far bigger than when seen with bare eyes. So if you look into the moon with bare eyes, smaller image is created, and comparatively when you look into the moon through the telescope, a very large image is created compared to the previous image. But both the images are smaller than the moon. So don't be under the impression that image will be larger than the moon. Okay, so now one thing I want to make it clear. Any optical instrument should have two things: magnifying power and resolving power. So what do you mean by magnifying power? What do you mean by resolving power? They are entirely separate things. Magnifying power means showing the image of an object larger than its object size itself. Magnification is the ratio of height of the image to the height of the object. And if the magnification is greater than 1, it is the height of the image is larger than the height of the object. And microscope has magnification greater than 1. It magnifies the image. That means it shows an image which is larger than the object. Whereas telescope, it doesn't do so. It doesn't show an image which is larger than the object, but it resolves it. What do you mean by resolving it? It shows an image which is larger than the image when seen through the bare eyes. Telescope shows an image to us which is a larger image compared to the image if you look into the object without telescope. So that is, and telescope always shows the image which is closer to us. That's why we see the image, larger image of the moon. So in telescope, there should be more resolving power, and all the instruments should have resolving power and magnifying power. but they are calculated in different way. In a telescope, the magnifying power and um, resolving power is calculated in one way, and we have seen that, right, in telescopes and microscopes. In microscopes, resolving power and magnifying power are calculated in another way. Okay, now we will see this. This is not included in the syllabus, and even though some many points in the previous case are included in the syllabus, and all of them will not be asked for the exam. For examination point of view, very few things are required. Even for entrance exam, you must understand it. The writing part is very less. That I will tell you what are the things that may be asked in the exam. I think I haven't sent you all the part of the notes. Rest of the parts you will get it. Okay. Then you will have questions that only those question and answers are important. Okay. Now, see, when the headlight of a vehicle is very far away, here, like this, it appears to be single headlight, because the diffraction pattern, that means the light coming from that single headlight forms its own bright, dark images, and and its pattern will be like this, one diffraction pattern like this, and the diffraction pattern of another, so they are overlapping, and you can't see them well separated. The principal maxima, the central maxima of one diffraction pattern and the central maxima of another diffraction pattern, they are not far away, they are close to each other. So they are within the first minimum of the other. What do you mean by within the first minimum of the other? Suppose the central maximum of this one is here, that means its central bright fringe is here, and its next bright fringe is somewhere here, and this is the dark position. Within its dark position itself, the other bright is falling. So those two bright fringes will mix up, and you feel that there is only a single headlight. But as the vehicle approaches to you, you feel that there are two, and they get just separated. What do you mean by just resolved? This is unresolved. When the central maximum of one pattern falls within the first minimum of the other, you see, this central maximum is within the minimum of this one, right? Within the minimum of this one. If the central maximum of one pattern falls exactly on the first minimum of the other, when the brightness goes to dark here, the next bright image falls. At least we can see is just separated. So two objects are said to be just resolved if the central maximum of one pattern falls on the first minimum of the other. Only those who can follow this, just take it into your brain, that's all. And if you can't follow, never mind, okay, because this is something deep into physics, okay, on your level actually, but not very tough. For your level, it may be little tough, but still you try to follow it, right? So if the central maximum of one falls on the first minimum of the other, then the two objects are said to be just resolved, just separated. And if the headlight comes, or if the vehicle comes still closer to you, they appear well resolved. What is the meaning of well resolved? The pattern of one, the central maximum produced by one, will go away from the first minimum of the other. So the two patterns are separated, and you can see them well separated. So that is one condition. Of course, here all the conditions are shown. Well separated, you see, the central maximum of this is falling on the first, the second maximum of this. Okay, no problem. The second maximum of this need not be seen. At least we see the central maximum. So if it falls here, no problem. But here you see, the central maximum is just falling on the first minimum, just separated. They are overlapping. No separate observation here. Okay, this is how an headlight can be seen from a distant, very far away, closer, sorry, very far away, just coming closer. This is very close. You can see them well separated. Okay, so this is how a single, suppose a monochromatic light, say a laser beam, a red color laser beam or something, when it is passed through a very narrow hole drilled in a strong metal plate, very fine hole, it appears like this. So that parallel beam of light coming from the laser beam, of course here I haven't shown it colored, that forms the central brightest spot, which that is because of the parallel beam which passes through the hole, and the light one which is getting diffracted from all the edges of the hole, they will form the first ring here, because it is a hole now, it is not a slit, a rectangular slit, what I was explaining earlier. This is a circular hole. So that's why the rays of light will get a chance of falling on the edge on all the 360-degree rim, right, on the circular rim. So the edges of the circular rim, that is the hole, will act like sources of secondary waves. All of them will bend and they will produce a secondary ring, third ring, fourth ring, and we call this as n equal to 0, this is n equal to 1, n equal to 2, n equal to 3, so on. But the next fringes are not bright, only the central one is the brightest and the widest. You see the thickness of this, thickness of this, thickness of this, thickness goes on decreasing. So the basic difference between the interference and diffraction is, in interference all the bright fringes are equally bright. In diffraction all the bright fringes are not equally bright. Only central fringe is the brightest one, central maxima, it is the brightest, and the brightness of all the other one will be lesser. Brightness goes on decreasing as you move to the sides, and the fringe width is same in interference. Fringe width is not same in diffraction. Central maximum is widest, and the width of the next maximas will be lesser and lesser. There you can see it clearly. This is actual photograph of white light put on a small hole. Okay. Now, this is just a demonstration. Suppose you have a lens. Suppose you have a very small lens, say. If parallel beam of light, and let the width of the lens be 2a, its top to bottom diametrically length is 2a. Let a parallel beam of light be incident on this lens. Now, when this lens allows this, and now the lens acts like an obstacle if it is a very small lens. Now, when the light passes through this, then let us place a screen at exactly the focus of this, because we feel that they will get focused at the focus. But what happens is, you will at the focus you will get a very bright light. That is 100% sure. But there are diffracted beams also. What they will do? They will definitely form a pattern like this. Definitely form a pattern like this, because a lens will act like a circular aperture, a circular slit for the light. So light will start undergoing diffraction when it passes through that slit. So this will definitely happen. So take a lens of width 2a, that means its diameter from that circular edge. Let a parallel beam of light be incident on this, and keep a screen on at a distance of focus, focal length, right? Now you will get the diffraction pattern. Diffraction pattern means brightest spot here, that is where it gets focused, and the brightness goes on decreasing, becomes dark. Since it is a circular hole, circular aperture we call usually. Aperture means a small gap. We get actually the pattern like that. Of course, this it won't look like this. You have to turn it, right? You have to turn it 90-degree turn it. This is only the replica of whatever I get here. So you will get a circular patch here and dark. So it becomes dark, bright, and so on. So you're brighter. That is what you get. Now here there is no derivation. So when a parallel beam of light is passed through a lens of diameter 2a, diameter in the sense not the diameter of curvature, the circular rim diameter 2a, the circular pattern fringes obtained. Among them, this is the central bright fringe. The central bright fringe, its radius is given by this formula. This is what you have to remember. Of course, not a very important formula. It becomes important when you apply it to microscope. That I will tell you. So, right? But you must know what is this actually. What is this formula? So when a lens, when parallel beam of light is made to fall on a lens, because of the diffraction effects, the refracted light and diffracted light will not form a single focus. Light will not be focused at a single point. Of course, it will be focused, but the brightness goes on decreasing and it becomes dark, and you will get another focused point, second maxima, and the radius of the central maxima, that is how much brightness patch of light you will get at the center on the screen and till the dark fringe. What is its radius? Here, either here or here. Radius of the central maxima when a parallel beam of light is made to fall on a circular aperture, that is 0.61 lambda f by a. Hope you have followed, right? when a light, and I could have applied this anywhere, this formula. There is no derivation now for the time being in your syllabus, so I don't touch it. When a parallel beam of light is made to fall on a circular aperture of diameter 2a or any lens of diameter 2a, then the radius of the central maxima is given by 0.61 lambda f by a, where lambda is the wavelength of light used, f is the focal length of the lens, and a is the radius of the lens, right? Or 2a is the diameter of the lens. Now, suppose if you stand here on the lens. Now, lens is the obstacle. Am I right? Lens is the obstacle. Stand at the lens and look into this central bright fringe. The area up to which that bright focus is produced. Okay, stand here. Okay. Yes. Stand here and look into the this half of the ring, this central bright fringe. This is theta. Correct? Right? This is theta. Now I want to put this. What is this theta? It is the angular width of the central maximum. Correct? This is the pattern is like a circular. Since the hole is aperture is the circular one, obstacle is the circular aperture, we should get a circular patch of light here. Its radius is given by this formula, and the angular width of the circular aperture, the central maximum is theta. Of course, this pattern should be formed here. So angular width is theta. Now, if I apply this again the same rule, this one is the radius. Say this is the arc length. Arc length is this radius. This length is focal length. So shall I write this r, which is equal to this? R is equal to f theta. R equal to f theta. If r equal to f theta, then you have to multiply f. What is theta is equal to? Theta is equal to r by f, correct? Theta is equal to r by f. And you have to remove f, that means divide f to r. When you divide f to r, you get 0.61 lambda. F gets cancelled. 0.61 lambda by a. Did you get that? So when a parallel beam of light is made to fall on a circular aperture or any lens, we get on the screen, which is placed at a distance of focus, not a single focused light, we get multiple focused light like this. And the radius of the and out of them, the central one is the more focused light. It is the brightest spot, and its radius is given by this formula. And if you want to know what is the angular width of that central maximum, then you can write arc length radius is equal to f into theta. L equal to r theta formula. Basically, I have applied L equal to r theta formula. So r is equal to f theta. Theta is equal to r by f. And divide this by f, then you will get the equation, then 0.61 lambda by a. Now, this formula is required, very much required, because if this formula, this is the minimum condition for observing two closely lying objects as separate objects for a microscope. Now, we are coming to the very important part of the syllabus. As far as exam is concerned, this formula is very important. What is this? Now, for a microscope, the thing is, in a microscope, what are the things you have? Sir, we have an eyepiece through which we see. There is an objective, that means which is towards the object, right? Even in a binocular, there are two lenses which will adjust for the eyepiece. And there is another lens on the other side which is towards the object, right? So, there are eyepiece, there are objectives. So, remember, objective means not object. It is a lens which is towards the object. It is called objective. And the lens through which we see is eyepiece. Now, objective is always towards object. Suppose this is a very small bacteria or anything. Now, rays of light coming from the object entering into the objective. You might have used a microscope in the laboratories, or you might have seen it. Even a small magnifying lens, for example, when you look in, keep the magnifying lens in front of a book and try to see the letters which are in enlarged images. The the rays of light coming from the paper and entering into the lens, how they will be? Won't they form a cone-like arrangement here, right? They form a cone-like arrangement here, because the rays of light will come to the other end of the rim like this. They will enter. The rays of light entering to the all parts of the rim, they will enter into the lens. Rays of light which come inside also, they enter into the lens. So on the lens, rays of light will be falling from the object in different positions, and all these rays of light coming from the object to the lens, to the all part of the lens, they make a cone shape. And what is the angle of that cone? Semi-vertical angle. I am not calculating the full angle of that cone. Semi-vertical angle of that cone, that is called beta. So if it is asked what is beta, it is the semi-vertical angle of the cone of rays forming the image. Semi-vertical angle of the cone of rays, rays coming from the object entering into the lens, right? So this is a microscope symbolically, and this is the object. There is a gap, and through the gap rays of light must enter. They should come into the lens and they make a cone. What is the semi-vertical angle? Semi means half, that is beta. Another thing, sir, what is this gap? That gap may be filled with air. In some microscope, that gap may not be left, and that may be filled with oil. Let us assume that there is a medium here, any medium. Usually when you use a microscope in biology laboratory, it will be air between the gap of object and the objective lens. Okay, N be the refractive index of the medium between the object and the objective. Okay, N be the refractive index of the medium between the object and objective. Let the rays enter into the lens and let us see the image, and the image is enlarged. A microscope should have a resolving power as well as a magnifying power. What do you mean by magnifying power? Ratio of the height of the image to the height of the object. Definitely it will have a magnifying power, because a microscope is arranged in the same way. You know, in a microscope we use an eye lens, objective, and objective forms a magnified real image, and that image is taken as an object by the eyepiece. Eyepiece forms another enlarged image. Magnification total is the product of the magnification. All these things we have studied. Now, what do you mean by resolving power? What do you mean by limit of resolution? See, D minimum. D minimum is the limit of resolution. RP means resolving power. I'll define it. That definition is not here. These are very important, both formula as well as definition. Now, you can't, and we were discussing about a mosquito in the last class, right? A mosquito's lips and eyes cannot be seen separately through our eyes. But if you put the mosquito under the microscope, you can see them. Why? Because microscope can show them separated. Now, that means, what is the, and even that microscope has a limitation, isn't it? Can it show all the parts of, or each and every DNA, RNA, and each and every cell and everything part of the mosquito separate? No, our biology lab microscope may not be having so much of ability. Now suppose there is a microscope A. Microscope A can show 1 micrometer distant objects as separate objects. Say, suppose there are 2 dots. 2 dots are separated by 1 micrometer. And if you look into those 2 dots in your eyes, bare eyes, you can't see them separated. So let us assume like that. Those 2 dots which are put in a distance of 1 micrometer cannot be seen as separate dots when you look into them through your eyes. That means your eye has no ability of showing them separated. Look through the microscope A. Microscope A can show micrometer distant 2 points as separate objects. So, okay, let it be. Now, let us take another microscope. Microscope B. Will it show the 2 objects separate? Yes, sir, it also shows. Okay. Take another 2-point objects, which are 2 dots made on a glass slab, say. Very fine dots made on a glass slab. What is the distance between the 2 dots, sir? 1 nanometer. Very, very small dots, and they are separated by 1 nanometer. Through your bare eyes, you can never see them. Why? Because you couldn't see 1 micrometer itself. Then how can you see 1 nanometer? It's not possible. Now try with the telescope A. Sir, telescope A shows the two dots as single dots, sir. It cannot show the two dots at nanometer separate, but it was showing 1 micrometer dots separate as separate dots. Now try with B. Sir, microscope B can show 1 nanometer dots, separate dots as separate dots themselves. It doesn't appear merged in the microscope B, sir. Then which microscope is better? That is my question. Microscope B, because it can show even nanometer separated objects also as separate objects. It doesn't show them merged. Whereas microscope A can show only up to micrometer. Now that distance is called limit of resolution, right? So now define what do you mean. So that means my conclusion is, finally, after explaining all these things, I will end up with the 4 formulas and 4 definitions. That's all. Don't worry much about that. My intention of explaining like this is, what do you mean by limit of resolution? And that means every microscope has a limitation, isn't it? Every microscope will have a limitation. You can't say that now I have a microscope, it shows everything very big in size, whatever it is. Will it show nanometer sized objects as separate objects? Will it show each and every DNA, RNA and helical structure and everything separately? No. That means everything has a limitation. Nowadays, you know that electron microscopes are the ultimate best microscopes. Beyond, they show very closely lying objects as separate objects. So, what do you mean by limit of resolution? I'm not talking about magnification. Magnification we have already studied and we have already answered it. What do you mean by limit of resolution? What is the maximum one? Here it is not maximum, it is the minimum one. Correct? It is not maximum, it is minimum. Limit of resolution is the minimum distance between 2 point objects which appear just resolved when seen through the microscope. The minimum distance between the 2 point objects which are seen just separated or just resolved when seen through the microscope. When you see through the microscope on those 2 point objects or whatever the objects it may be, the 2 point objects which are, what is the minimum distance at which those 2 point objects can be seen as just separated objects through that microscope? That minimum distance is limit of resolution. For example, that example that I have given in the just a few minutes back, the limit of resolution of microscope A was only micrometer, 1 micrometer. Just less than 1 micrometer, it was not able to show it. The limit of resolution of the second telescope B was not only micrometer, it was nanometer. It could show even 10 to the power minus 9 meters separated by objects as separate objects itself, not merged one. So the minimum distance between the 2 point objects which appear just resolved when seen through the microscope is called limit of resolution. So if you are asked to say what is the limit of resolution of any microscope, you have to put it in a distance, right? So this is the minimum distance through which can be seen clearly in this microscope, not less than this. That's what you have to say. So that means limit of resolution should be as small as possible. So one is definition. What do you mean by limit of resolution? The minimum distance between the 2 point objects which are seen just separated or just resolved when seen through the microscope is called limit of resolution. What is the formula for limit of resolution? 1.22 lambda by 2n sine beta. No derivation. I don't derive it now. Actually, there is derivation. For the time being, I don't derive it. Once the classes have started, we will derive it because it's not so important for the examination point of view. 1.22 lambda by 2n sine beta. What are the terms? D minimum, the minimum distance, that is limit of resolution. Lambda, wavelength of light coming from the object, right? N, refractive index of the medium between the object and the objective. There is a gap of a medium through which the light from the object enters into the lens. So that, so simply you can say N is the refractive index of the medium that lies between the object and the objective. Beta, Semi-vertical angle of the cone of rays entering into the objective from the object. Semi-vertical angle of the cone of rays starting from the object enter into the objective. Okay. Now, what do you mean by resolving power, sir? Ability of the instrument to show the two closely lying objects as separate objects. That is a resolving power. Or mathematically, you can simply answer like this. The reciprocal of limit of resolution is called resolving power. Finish. Reciprocal of limit of resolution is called resolving power. So that means you have to reverse this formula. Resolving power is the reciprocal of this. 2n sin beta to the numerator, 1.22 lambda to the denominator. Finished. So easy to remember. So resolving power is the reciprocal of limit of resolution. What do you mean by limit of resolution? It is a minimum distance at which the 2-point objects are appearing just resolved when seen through the microscope. Okay, now the question, one more question. So you may get what do you mean by limit of resolution, or you may get formula, terms, explanation. Okay, now, sir, I have a microscope. When I build a microscope, I should have a microscope of lower and lower and lower limit of resolution as far as possible. That means it should be able to show very close objects as separate objects, and it should have more and more resolving power, because the reciprocal of limit of resolution should be the resolving power. Am I right? Lesser and lesser value for limit of resolution, higher and higher value for resolving power. Its ability to show the two closely lying objects as separate objects should be very high. That ability should be very high. Now, I have already constructed a microscope, or I am going to construct a microscope. What care I can take so that resolving power may be very high, limit of resolution is very low? What I can do, sir? How to, question is like this, how to increase the resolving power of a microscope, or how to decrease the limit of resolution, because limit of resolution should be as less as possible. How to increase the resolving power? We will take it like this. If you want to increase the resolving power, you know that n should be increased, correct? Beta, however, we can't change it. Lambda should be decreased. Am I right? So there are two ways of increasing the resolving power of a microscope. One, use a higher refractive index medium. Why to use air? Fill it with oil. Where to fill the oil? Not here. Don't fill the whole microscope in the oil. The gap between the object and the objective, correct? Such microscopes, the first way of increasing resolving power of a microscope is filling the oil between the gap of object and the objective. The gap between the object and objective is filled with the oil of higher refractive index. That increases the resolving power. Such microscopes are called oil immersion microscopes. So if you are asked to write what are oil immersion microscopes, don't write oil immersion microscopes are the microscopes which are immersed in oil. That is not the answer. These are oil immersion microscopes are the microscopes where the gap between the object and the objective is filled with a medium of higher refractive index. Decrease lambda, increase resolving power. What do you mean by decreasing lambda? So if here is an object, take a light, for example, ultraviolet light, switch it on. It falls on the object and goes here. Instead of ordinary visible light, you use ultraviolet. Of course, you have to use filters here, because it should be a filter somewhere here, because otherwise it will be dangerous to your eyes. That part we will take care later. So if the object is illuminated with the ultraviolet light instead of some other lights, visible light, ordinary visible light, ultraviolet light has lesser wavelength. Sir, can't we use X-rays and gamma rays which have still lesser wavelength? You know what is the problem of X-rays and gamma rays if they are used to illuminate the object. They are very harmful to living beings. And if you receive those light and if that falls on the retina, it is a permanent damage. So better not to use it. Ultraviolet is also harmful, but up to some extent we can use it. So if object is illuminated with a light of lower wavelength, resolving power can be increased. And such microscopes which use lower wavelength ultraviolet light, for example, they are called ultra microscopes. So ultra microscopes use ultraviolet, but one thing is, if you use ultraviolet here, remember always, you can't use glass lens here. You can't use glass lens. Why, sir? Glass completely absorbs ultraviolet. Have you seen people who are welding iron rods in the welding stations, right? They will be using a very large glass sheet in front of their eyes and they are welding. Why? Because during welding, ultraviolet light will be produced, and if they don't use anything in front of their eyes, all the ultraviolet will enter into the eyes and it will create pain. So they will be using a glass. Simple glass is enough. Glass absorbs ultraviolet. So how to avoid this, sir? If you use ultraviolet, wavelength of ultraviolet is lesser than the visible light, resolving power increases. But glass absorbs ultraviolet. What we will do? Use quartz lenses. Quartz doesn't absorb ultraviolet. So this is one solution. Hope you have got it, right? So now, what are the types of questions you get? And another one, sir, can't you decrease the wavelength further? Forget about this X-rays and gamma rays. Don't you have any other other cases where you can decrease the wavelength? Yes, there is. Electron microscopes. A beam of electrons act like beam of electrons. Any moving particle act like a wave, and its wavelength is very less. That is called wave nature, de Broglie wavelength, wave nature of a particle, matter wave. So you are going to study it later, and they are called electron microscopes. Of course, its structure is entirely different. Electron microscopes have high resolving power because the wave nature of the wavelength of electron beam or electrons particles is very less, so their resolving power is very high. That part you will study later separately. So what are the types of questions, sir? One, what do you mean by limit of resolution? It is the minimum distance, I am talking about microscope. It is the minimum distance between 2 point objects which are just separated, which are seen just separated when seen through the microscope. When you see through the microscope, if 2 point objects are seen just separated, then what is the minimum distance between them? What is the distance between them? That minimum distance is called limit of resolution. Formula for limit of resolution, 1 pi into lambda by 2 n sin beta. And what are the terms? Lambda, wavelength of light coming from the object. N, refractive index of the medium between the object and the objective. Beta, semi-vertical angle of the cone of rays falling on the objective. Okay. What do you mean by resolving power? Reciprocal of limit of resolution is called resolving power, or the ability of the instrument to show two closely lying objects as separate objects. Lower the limit of resolution, higher will be the resolving power. How can you increase the resolving power or decrease the limit of resolution? By using a medium of higher refractive index between the object and objective, and by decreasing the wavelength of light coming from the object. By using a higher refractive index medium is best example oil immersion microscopes, which use oil in this gap and thereby increase the refractive index. Decreasing the wavelength ultra microscopes, which use ultraviolet light and have more resolving power. Similarly, go to the okay. This is all the notes. Resolving power of a microscope can be increased by increasing the refractive index of the medium between the object and the objective. Oil immersion microscopes. Resolving power of a microscope can be increased by decreasing the wavelength of light, eliminating the object. Ultra microscopes. But in ultra microscopes, you should have quartz lenses. And okay, right, finished. Telescope. Sir, what is the resolving power and limit of resolution for a telescope now? Even telescopes have limit of resolution and resolving power. But the thing is, for a telescope, we don't write it as a minimum distance. We write it as a minimum angle. Because when we look into the two craters on the moon, we don't see that. But when we look into the two craters through the telescope, we see that. What has happened? Yeah, just that angle is increased, that's all. What is the minimum angle that is required at the eye to be created so that two objects are seen as separate objects? That minimum angle is called limit of resolution. So, for an eye or a telescope, the minimum angle created by the two just separated objects or just separated seen objects when seen through the instrument is called limit of resolution. For example, when you look into the sky, if you see two stars as single star, and if somewhere if you can see two stars just separated, that means they are creating, those two stars are creating an angle of 1 minute in your eyes, right? It is the minimum angle created at the eye by two objects which are seen as just separate objects. So here it comes the angle when it comes to the question of telescope, because there is no question of distance. If you write it as distance, what is the distance between telescope, what is the distance between two stars? It is very high. So it is not distance, it should be angle, because the position, our position is the problem. The distance from us and the moon is the problem. That's why we don't see the craters of the moon. Suppose we were very close to the moon, we would have seen it. So it should be the angle. So for a telescope, the minimum angle subtended by the two objects which are seen as just separated objects at the telescope is called limit of resolution. Now for a telescope, there is a lens here. Can you see that? And that lens should be as large as possible for a telescope. That is called objective lens, and here we are not much interested with the eyepiece, because magnification here is not much important. Here resolving power is much important. So the reciprocal of limit of resolution is resolving power, and limit of resolution is given by 2.22 lambda by d, and resolving power is d by 1.22 lambda, where d is diameter of the this objective lens, the lens which is towards the object, diameter of the objective lens, and wavelength of light coming from the object. And if you want to write the radius of the objective lens, of course you have to write it as 2a. When you write it as 2a, if a is the radius, it is 2a, diameter is 2a, and the denominator becomes 0.61. So any formula you can use, but formula is very important. Okay. So how to increase the resolving power of a telescope? Use a lens of larger and larger diameter. Over. Increase the aperture of the lens. So try to use your lens as large as possible. That is quite clear, because if you want to see the clear image of an object which is emitting light from a very distant place, receive as much as light possible. So resolving power of a telescope can be increased by increasing the size of the objective, diameter of the objective. So can't we decrease lambda? No, because that lambda, wavelength of light coming from the distant object, cannot be changed because it is far away. We can't go and have another illuminating light on the object and make it available. Not possible. So don't say that by decreasing lambda, resolving power can be increased here, right? So that is not possible, because the object is already far away. Whatever the light is emitted from the object, that we must receive it. We can't change it. So definition of limit of resolution for a telescope: it is the minimum angle subtended at the eye by two closely lying objects which are seen just separated when seen through the telescope. When you see through the telescope to those, for example, 2 points on the moon, say 2 craters on the moon. 2 craters on the moon are seen very just separated, just 2 separate craters. How much angle they create on the telescope? That minimum angle is called limit of resolution, and that is equal to 1.22 lambda by d. Lambda is the wavelength of light coming from the object, d is the diameter of the objective lens, resolving power is the reciprocal of limit of resolution, d by 1.22 lambda. Now increasing the resolving power of a telescope is increasing the capital D. Okay, right. And with this I will end up the class. But and one thing here, I want to make you remember very clearly how to get without confused, or how to remember these formulas without confusion, sir. See, for example, microscope, 2n sin beta by 1.22 lambda, or 1.22 lambda by 2n sin beta. You usually get confused with this one. Remember only this one, enough. What about this? Reciprocal of that. Remember only this one. Sir, how to remember this? Remember the conditions. How will you increase the resolving power of a microscope? Using oil immersion microscope. Increase the refractive index. N should come in the numerator. Decreasing the wavelength, ultra microscope. Lambda should come in the denominator. That's all. Similarly here, for a telescope, 1.22 lambda by d. Sorry, this one, d by 1.22 lambda. So for resolving power should be as high as possible. Lambda should be in the denominator. Increase the diameter. Of course, here lambda is not decreased, but lambda should be in the denominator. And the length should be of larger and larger diameter. So diameter should be on the numerator. So that's how we can remember it. So by using the points which are used to increase the resolving power. So stick on to only one formula: resolving power of telescope, resolving power of microscope. Then you won't forget it. Now, one of the problem which we worked out last time, I made a small mistake there. I didn't completely divide it. There is this problem itself. Two beams of light having wavelength 650 nanometer and 500 nanometer are used to eliminate interference slit on one after the other. Distance between the slits and the screen is 60 centimeter and the separation between the slits is 1 millimeter. Remember? So in that problem, there should be a correction. The thing is, there are two sources. Once one source is switched on, right? Say one blue light. It will have its own blue bright, blue dark, blue bright, blue dark. And next red is switched on, another source. So there are 4 betas here. And then the red like this. The 1, 2, 3, third bright fringe of red and some 1, 2, 3, fourth bright fringe of blue are formed at the same place. That is what is the distance. That is what they are asking. So this is n beta. This is m beta for another one. Betas are different. So this is 3 beta 2. That means 4 beta 1 must be equal to 3 beta 2. The distance of 1 beta, 2 beta, 3 beta of red and 1 beta, 2 beta, 3 beta, 4 beta of blue must be same. That's how we have to proceed. N1 beta 1 must be equal to N2 beta 2. N1 lambda 1 d by d must be equal to N2 lambda 2 d by d. But the apparatus setup is same. D and capital D are same. That's how we have to proceed. And N1 lambda 1 equal to N2 lambda 2. But here in this problem, okay, N1 lambda 1 must be equal to N2 lambda 2. N1 by N2 is equal to lambda 2 by lambda 1. Okay, but the wavelengths are 520 and 650. Here I went wrong. I didn't divide it. I kept it 52 by 65 only. Now I want to see whether it is the 4th one and 3rd one, 5th one and 7th one, 8th one or 3rd one. So which fringes are meeting here? Which fringe of red, which fringe of blue, which fringe of 520 nanometer, which fringe of 650. It is not 52nd and 65th because I can divide it by 30. This is the minimum possible division, right? And later on it becomes fraction. Fraction has no meaning because you have to exactly identify which numbered fringe. It is the 4th fringe of 650 nanometer and 5th fringe of 520 nanometer. Sir, how do you say that? Because 520 nanometer will form shorter steps, right? Shorter fringes. 650 nanometer will have longer fringes because beta is equal to lambda d by d. Beta is directly proportional to lambda. More the lambda, more beta, right? This is for higher wavelength. This is for lower wavelength. So 650 nanometer needs only 4 steps, 4 betas. 520 nanometer needs only 5 steps. So this division I missed out. I thought that this cannot be divided, but this can be divided. 13 4s are 13 5s are. So this you have to correct it. Okay. So we will do that. Many of them corrected it. Actually, they messaged me and said that it should be corrected, and I came to know later that 4 by 5. I too got the doubt, but on that day I was not so well, and I was able to. I was simply thinking of finishing the class somehow. So 4th of 650 nanometer, 5th fringe of 520 nanometer, they coincide. That is like this. That means, and you got the fringe width actually. So 4th of 650 nanometer. Fringe width of 650 nanometer is 0.390 millimeter multiplied, that is at 1.56 millimeter, and 5th fringe of 520 nanometer, its beta is 0.312. Multiply this, you will get the same distance. Any one distance is enough. If they ask you at what distance it is formed, of course. And I plan to take up a similar type of problem and work it out in the classroom itself once. Somebody asked me that don't work out the problems in PPT, sir, we don't understand. Please work it out in the class. So I'll do that, okay? Don't worry. But these problems are important. They are very important. So we will have to take care of it. Okay. So with this, I will end up this class. It is already 1 hour more, and next class we will have easiest part of this. So diffraction is little bit difficult to understand. And one thing I want to make it very clear, in diffraction, if it is asked, if some question is asked, what are the conditions for the formation of bright fringes? A sin theta equal to n plus half lambda. What are the conditions for formation of dark fringes? A sin theta equal to n lambda. Then what do you mean by resolving power of a microscope? Resolving power of a telescope. Limit of resolution of a microscope. Limit of resolution of a telescope. What are the ways in which you can increase the resolving power of a microscope, telescope? Only that much, and nothing more than that. And then in interference, the beta derivation, fringe width, the interference is very good. Next we get polarization, which is very, very simple. And after working out some problems in the classroom, then we will do that. Okay, till then, thanks for watching. Thanks for bearing with me for such a long explanation. We will meet in the next class. Take care. Thank you.